He pushed her limits, and she whispered, "Don't leave me." Starfall awakening. The aurora of Meridian's twin moons painted the night sky in ribbons of emerald and violet as Lyra Voss fought to keep her ship from breaking apart. The stellar cartographer's hands flew across the control panel, her breath coming in short gasps as warning alerts screamed through the cockpit. "Status report," she demanded, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Hull integrity at 47%, the ship's AI responded. "Solar flare radiation exceeding safe parameters. Recommend immediate landing." Lyra gritted her teeth. This uncharted sector wasn't supposed to have solar activity this volatile. The map data she'd been sent was either outdated or deliberately falsified. Either way, she was in trouble. "Find me somewhere to land," she ordered, wincing as another energy surge rocked the vessel. The scanner highlighted a small plateau on the unexplored planet below. It wasn't ideal, but with the quantum drive failing and life support systems flickering, she didn't have much choice. "Initiating emergency landing protocol," she muttered, strapping herself in tighter. "Let's hope this goes better than my last crash." The ship plunged through Meridian's atmosphere, trailing sparks and debris. Lyra pulled back on the controls with all her strength, managing to level out enough to avoid a fatal nosedive. The landing was still brutal. The impact slammed her forward against the restraints, and something in the instrument panel exploded in a shower of sparks. Darkness claimed her. When Lyra regained consciousness, the acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled her nostrils. Pain throbbed behind her eyes as she blinked, trying to orient herself in the dim emergency lighting. Something warm trickled down her forehead, blood from a gash above her eyebrow. A shadow fell across the cracked viewport. Someone was outside. Lyra's hand moved instinctively to the pulse pistol at her hip. In unexplored space, you could never be too careful. The emergency hatch creaked open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. A tall figure stood silhouetted against Meridian's strange twilight. "Need a hand?" a deep voice called out. "Or would you prefer to bleed out in there?" Lyra kept her hand on her weapon as she responded. "Depends on what you're charging for the rescue." A low chuckle. "How about a conversation? It's been 3 standard months since I've spoken to anyone besides my research drones." The figure stepped closer, and Lyra could now see him clearly, tall, broad-shouldered, with intelligent eyes set in a face weathered by years under alien suns. His dark hair was streaked with silver at the temples, and he wore the practical attire of a field researcher rather than the uniform of any known military or corporate entity. "Kieran Dax," he said, extending his hand. "Xenoanthropologist, welcome to Meridian." Lyra hesitated before accepting his handshake. Lyra Voss, stellar cartographer. His grip was firm but gentle. "This planet isn't on any official star charts." "That's by design," Kieran replied, helping her from the wreckage. "Come on, that cut needs attention, and there's another solar flare predicted in 6 hours. We need to get to shelter." As they walked away from her damaged ship, Lyra studied their surroundings. Meridian was beautiful in an otherworldly way. Massive crystalline formations rose from the purple-hued soil, reflecting the light of the setting sun in prismatic patterns. Vegetation unlike anything she'd ever cataloged swayed in the gentle breeze. "How long have you been here?" she asked, trying to distract herself from the pain in her head and the growing awareness that her ship was beyond quick repair. "Almost 2 years," Kieran answered, guiding her toward what appeared to be an entrance carved into one of the larger crystal formations. "Studying the ruins of the Meridian civilization." "Never heard of them." "Few have. They vanished 10,000 years ago, leaving behind technology we're still trying to understand." He paused at the entrance, pressing his palm against a seemingly ordinary patch of crystal. In response, the entire structure hummed with soft blue light and an opening appeared. "Impressive security system," Lyra murmured. "Not mine," Theirs. Kieran led her inside. The Meridians were masters of quantum engineering. Their entire civilization was built on principles we're only beginning to grasp. The interior was a startling contrast to the rugged landscape outside. Clean lines, soft illumination emanating from the walls themselves, and a surprising warmth despite the crystalline structure. It wasn't just a research outpost. Kieran had made this alien structure his home. "Sit," he instructed, gesturing to a curved bench as he retrieved what looked like a medical kit. "Let me take care of that cut." Lyra winced as he cleaned the wound with gentle efficiency. So, xenoanthropologist working alone on an uncharted planet, running from something or hiding something. His eyes met hers, a flash of amusement mixed with wariness. Could ask the same of a stellar cartographer whose navigation systems just happened to fail exactly where they'd find an unmapped planet. Fair point. Lyra inhaled sharply as he applied a regenerative gel to her cut. "I was commissioned to map unstable stellar phenomena in this sector. The client was vague about what exactly they were looking for." "The Helix Corporation?" Kieran asked, his voice suddenly tense. Lyra's eyes widened. "How did you?" "They've been trying to locate Meridian for years." He finished treating her wound and stepped back. "They know there's something valuable here, but they don't understand what they're looking for." "And you do." Kieran's expression grew distant. "I'm getting closer. The Meridians discovered something profound about the nature of reality, something that challenges everything we think we know about consciousness, connection, and compatibility between different forms of life." An alert chimed on his wrist device. "Solar flares approaching faster than predicted. We need to get deeper inside." He offered his hand. "Your ship's not going anywhere until the storm passes, and even then, the quantum drive looked severely damaged." Lyra took his hand without hesitation this time. "Lead the way." Over the next few days, an unexpected partnership formed between them. While Lyra worked on repairing her ship, a task complicated by the damage to the quantum drive, Kieran showed her his research. The Meridian ruins contained technology that defied conventional understanding, based on principles that seemed to blur the line between physics and metaphysics. They believed consciousness itself was a fundamental force, Kieran explained one evening as they shared a meal in his living quarters. "Not just an emergent property of neural networks, but something that permeates the universe like gravity or electromagnetism." Lyra found herself drawn to his passion, his intellect, the way his eyes lit up when discussing his theories. It had been years since she'd connected with someone this way, not since the academy, before corporate contracts and classified missions had become her life. "If your theory is correct," she said, examining a Meridian artifact that pulsed with soft light whenever they both touched it, "it would revolutionize everything we know about interspecies communication, compatibility, maybe even the possibility of true connection across different kinds of consciousness." "Exactly." Kieran's hand brushed against hers as he took the artifact, and something electric passed between them. The Meridians believe that certain beings naturally resonate with each other on a quantum level, regardless of species, origin, or physical form. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither spoke. The attraction that had been building between them suddenly felt tangible, like a physical force in the room. "Kieran," Lyra said softly, "why are you really here alone studying this?" Before he could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. The artifacts around them began to glow intensely, responding to something deep within the planet. "What's happening?" Lyra asked, steadying herself against the wall. Kieran's expression was a mixture of excitement and concern. "The resonance chamber, something's activated it." He grabbed her hand. "Come on." They ran through crystalline corridors that pulsed with increasing luminescence, descending deeper into the Meridian structure. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber dominated by a swirling column of light that seemed to bend and twist reality around it. What is this? Lyra breathed, mesmerized by the spectacle. The heart of Meridian technology, Kieran answered, equally awestruck. It's never activated like this before. The column of light suddenly expanded, enveloping them both. Lyra gasped as images flooded her mind, stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, and through it all, two forms moving toward each other across vast distances of space and time. When the light receded, she found herself on her knees, Kieran beside her, his hand still clasping hers. "Did you see?" she began. "Us," he finished, his voice barely above a whisper. "Across 1,000 lifetimes, 1,000 realities." Their eyes met, and the truth couldn't be denied any longer. Their meeting wasn't coincidence. Something had drawn them together across the vastness of space, something the Meridians had understood 10,000 years ago. As Kieran helped her to her feet, Lyra felt the last of her professional reservations melting away. His touch sent waves of awareness through her body, awakening sensations she'd never experienced before. "This changes everything," she whispered as they stood close, the chamber still pulsing with energy around them. "Yes," Kieran agreed, his hand gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Everything." When their lips finally met, it was like two stars colliding, bright, inevitable, and world-changing. Lyra felt something awaken within her, a connection that transcended physical attraction, as if some part of her had recognized him from the moment they met. What they just discovered in the resonance chamber could transform their understanding of the universe. But as Kieran deepened the kiss, pulling her closer, Lyra knew that the most profound discovery was what was happening between them. A connection that defied explanation, but felt more real than anything she'd ever known. What neither of them realized was that their connection had triggered something deep within the planet. Something that would soon draw unwanted attention from across the stars and force them to make choices that would determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of two universes on the brink of collision. Quantum entanglement. Dawn broke over Meridian's crystalline landscape, bathing Kieran's outpost in prismatic light. Lyra stood at the viewport, watching the twin moons sink below the horizon. Behind her, Kieran worked intently at a console, analyzing the data from yesterday's unexpected activation of the resonance chamber. "These readings are unprecedented," he murmured, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "The energy signature is exactly what I've been searching for." Lyra turned to face him, still processing everything that had happened between them. Their kiss in the chamber had been followed by hours of intense conversation, revelations that had kept them awake until exhaustion finally claimed them. "You still haven't fully explained why you're really here," she said softly. "What's your mission, Kieran? The truth this time." He looked up, his expression somber. Setting aside the holographic displays, he crossed the room to join her by the viewport. "I didn't come to Meridian just to study ancient ruins," he admitted. "I came because our universe is dying." "What?" Lyra stared at him in disbelief. "Quantum instability at the galactic core. It's been detected by only our most sensitive instruments, but the evidence is clear. Our reality is beginning to collapse upon itself." His eyes met hers. "And it's not just our universe. There's another, parallel to ours, experiencing the same degradation." Lyra's mind raced. "That's impossible. Even theoretical physics doesn't support." "Conventional physics doesn't," Kieran interrupted gently. "But the Meridians understood something we're only beginning to grasp. They discovered that consciousness itself is the bridge between realities, that certain paired souls exist across dimensions, naturally quantum entangled." He gestured to the ancient artifacts surrounding them. "They built this technology not just to communicate with another universe, but to potentially merge realities that were naturally compatible." The implication staggered her. "And you believe we're, what, quantum counterparts? That's why the chamber activated when we were both inside." "I know how it sounds," Kieran said, taking her hands in his. But you felt it too, that recognition that goes beyond physical attraction or intellectual compatibility. Lyra couldn't deny it. From the moment they'd met, something had resonated between them, a connection that defied rational explanation. "If you're right," she said slowly, "why keep this secret? Why work alone?" Kieran's expression darkened. "Because there are those who would weaponize this technology rather than use it to save both our realities. The Helix Corporation isn't interested in preservation. They want to selectively determine which parts of each universe survive the merger." A sudden alert from the perimeter sensors interrupted them. Kieran rushed to the console, his face paling as he studied the display. "Imperial shuttle," he said grimly. "Helix Corporation markings. They must have detected the energy surge from the chamber." Lyra's hand went instinctively to her pulse pistol. "How many?" "At least a dozen troops plus what looks like a science team." He began rapidly shutting down systems. "We need to move deeper into the ruins. There's another chamber, even more ancient, where the Meridians conducted their most crucial experiments." They worked quickly, gathering essential equipment and research data. As they prepared to depart, Kieran paused, looking at Lyra intently. "You could still walk away from this," he said quietly. "Tell them you crashed, know nothing about me or my research. Your reputation might be enough to protect you." Lyra stepped closer, cupping his face in her hands. "Since when do stellar cartographers run from new discoveries?" she asked with a small smile. "Besides, after what we saw in that chamber, do you really think I could walk away from you now?" Relief washed over his features as he leaned down to kiss her briefly. "Then, let's go rewrite the laws of the universe." They slipped from the outpost through a hidden passage, descending deeper into the planet's crystalline core. The tunnels grew increasingly complex, ancient glyphs covering the walls in luminescent patterns that responded to their presence. "The language changes the deeper we go," Lyra noted, studying the symbols, "almost like it's evolving, becoming more intimate." Kieran nodded. The Meridians believed language itself was a frequency, a vibration that could attune consciousness across dimensions. "Look at this," Lyra called, stopping before a panel that pulsed with soft blue light. The glyphs rearranged themselves as she approached, forming patterns that somehow felt familiar. Kieran joined her, his expression one of wonder. "It's responding to you specifically." He reached out, and when his fingers touched the panel alongside hers, the entire wall became transparent, revealing a vast chamber beyond. "The nexus point," he whispered reverently. They entered a cathedral-like space, dominated by a massive structure that resembled two intertwined spiral staircases, constructed of the same crystal as the rest of the ruins, but pulsing with inner light that shifted between all visible colors, and some that defied categorization. "It's beautiful," Lyra breathed. Before Kieran could respond, a distant explosion shook the tunnels behind them. "They've breached the outpost," he said grimly. "We don't have much time." They rushed to the central console, Kieran's fingers flying over the ancient controls with practiced familiarity. Holographic displays sprung to life, showing complex equations and dimensional models that rotated and shifted. The Meridians believed that properly attuned consciousnesses could serve as anchors between universes, he explained rapidly, "if we can establish a stable connection." "And what happens to us?" Lyra asked, suddenly understanding the true nature of what he was proposing. "If we become the anchors?" Kieran's eyes met hers, filled with both determination and regret. "I don't know. The Meridians' records are incomplete. They attempted the procedure, but there's no record of the outcome." Heavy footsteps echoed from the tunnel. The Helix forces were closing in. "We need to decide now," Kieran said urgently. Lyra thought of her life before crashing on Meridian, the endless solo missions mapping distant stars, the emptiness that had driven her to accept increasingly dangerous assignments. Then she thought of Kieran, of the connection that had bloomed between them in mere days yet felt eternal. "How do we do this?" she asked, her decision made. Relief washed over his features. He guided her to one side of the intertwined spiral structure, positioning himself on the opposite side. "The resonance requires balance," he explained. "Two minds in perfect harmony, focusing on the connection between them rather than either reality individually." As the sound of approaching soldiers grew louder, they each placed their hands on crystalline nodes that extended from the structure. "Focus on me," Kieran said, his eyes locked with hers across the chamber. "Nothing else matters, not this universe, not the parallel one, just the space between us." The crystal beneath Lyra's palms grew warm, then hot, but she didn't pull away. Energy coursed through her body, making her nerve endings sing. The chamber around them began to shimmer, reality itself becoming fluid. "Kieran," she called out, suddenly afraid as the very air seemed to fracture around them. "Stay with me," he responded, his voice somehow both distant and intimately close. "Feel the connection, Lyra. It transcends everything, space, time, even the boundaries between universes." The helix forces burst into the chamber, weapons raised, but froze at the spectacle before them. The intertwined spiral structure now blazed with blinding light, and Lyra and Kieran appeared to exist in multiple places simultaneously, their forms overlapping and separating in impossible ways. "Shut it down," the Helix commander ordered, but his scientists stood transfixed, instruments registering readings that defied all known physics. Lyra could feel herself becoming something other than purely physical, her consciousness expanding, reaching across an impossible void to where Kieran's mind waited. They were becoming the bridge, their connection the foundation for something vaster than either had imagined. And in that expansion she saw everything, the parallel universe collapsing just as theirs was, the countless lives that would be lost without their intervention, and most intimately, she saw Kieran's soul in its entirety. His hopes, fears, the solitary path that had led him here, driven by a vision of salvation most dismissed as impossible. Time lost all meaning as they hung suspended between realities. Around them, the two universes began to align, not merging completely but finding stable points of connection anchored in their consciousness. When awareness returned, Lyra found herself lying on the chamber floor, Kieran beside her, their hands still tightly clasped. The chamber was empty of helix forces. Whether they had fled or been translated elsewhere in the partial merger was unclear. "Did we succeed?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. Kieran slowly sat up, helping her to do the same. "Look," he said, gesturing to the chamber around them. The world had changed. Colors had subtly shifted, the crystal structures now containing elements that hadn't existed before. And through the viewport that had appeared in the chamber wall, they could see Meridian's landscape transformed. The twin moons now orbited alongside a third celestial body that pulsed with gentle blue light. "We created a stable intersection," Kieran said with wonder. "Not a complete merger, but a harmonious overlay where both realities can coexist." "The collapsing has stopped." He checked the readings on the still-functioning ancient console. "Yes, both universes have stabilized around this intersection point." His eyes met hers, filled with emotions too complex for words. "You were magnificent." Lyra touched his face, tracing features that were simultaneously exactly as she remembered and somehow knew. "What are we now, Kieran? Still human?" "That," he said with a smile, drawing her closer, "is a question for scientists to debate for generations. But whatever we've become, we're together." As their lips met, Lyra felt the resonance between them, stronger now, a harmonic vibration that seemed to connect them at levels beyond the physical. Their separate consciousnesses danced along the boundaries between individuality and unity, creating something revolutionary. Outside, across both newly connected universes, others like them, pairs of souls naturally quantum entangled across dimensions, began to awaken to possibilities they had never imagined. "What now?" Lyra asked when they finally broke apart. Kieran's eyes sparkled with excitement and tender affection. Now, now we map the stars of two universes, cartographer, together." Hand in hand, they stepped out into a world transformed by their connection, a world where the laws of physics had been rewritten by the most powerful force in existence, the quantum entanglement of two souls meant to find each other across the void. And as Meridian's three moons rose in the alien sky above them, Lyra knew with absolute certainty that the universe, both universes, would never be the same. "I always knew the stars held secrets," she whispered against Kieran's shoulder as they watched the unprecedented celestial display. "I just never imagined the greatest secret would be us." Kieran's arm tightened around her waist. "Some discoveries push the boundaries of science," he said softly, "and some transcend them entirely." Together they faced the new horizon, pioneers of a reality where love was not just an emotion but a fundamental force of nature, powerful enough to bridge universes and rewrite the very fabric of existence.